You've said it. I've said it. Every parent I know has said it. Just stop. Because I said so. You're being too sensitive. Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. Big kids don't do that. Why can't you just listen for once? You're so stubborn. Be nice or no one will want to play with you. You're fine, it's not a big deal. I'm going to leave without you. These phrases feel harmless. They feel automatic. They feel like the only words left when you've already asked 7 times and the meltdown is still going and the eggs are burning and your toddler is screaming because their sock has a wrinkle in it. But here is what nobody has ever sat down and told you. These phrases, the ones you heard as a child, the ones that come out before you even think, are landing inside a brain that cannot process them the way your adult brain can. And the impact is not just emotional, it is neurological. It is structural. And once you understand what is actually happening inside your toddler's skull when those words hit, you will never be able to unhear it. I am not here to make you feel guilty. I am here to hand you information that nobody gave you so that you can make a different choice the next time the words start to rise. Let's talk about what is actually going on, because the science changes everything. The toddler brain is not a smaller version of your brain. I need you to really let that land. It is not just less experienced or less mature. It is structurally, biologically, fundamentally different from the brain you are operating with right now. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic, impulse control, emotional regulation, the ability to understand cause and effect, the ability to hear a correction and learn from it. That region of the brain does not fully develop until somewhere between 25 and 30 years old. Your toddler is 2, maybe 3. They are working with a brain that is flooded with new experiences, enormous emotions, and almost no architecture yet to process any of it. What they do have, though, what is fully online and extremely active, is the amygdala, the emotional alarm system, the threat detector. And here is the part that changes how you hear every phrase on that list. When you say something that triggers stress, shame, fear, or abandonment, even in a tone that feels completely normal to you, your toddler's amygdala reads that as a survival threat. Not a lesson, not a correction, a threat. And when the amygdala fires, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. The very part of the brain that could theoretically hear your message and learn from it shuts down. The body floods with cortisol. The child either explodes or freezes or clings or collapses. And then you, understandably, interpret that reaction as defiance, drama, or proof that they just do not care. But they were not refusing to learn. Their brain had already left the building. I want to ask you something before we go further. What was the phrase from that list that you heard the most growing up? Drop it in the comments, because I think what we find there will surprise a lot of people in this community. Now let's go through the 10 phrases one by one. And I am going to give you the neuroscience translation for each one, because that is what this channel is built on. We don't just tell you what not to do. We tell you why it works the way it does inside the developing brain, so you actually have a reason to reach for something different. Phrase number 1, just stop. When a toddler is dysregulated, mid-meltdown, mid-tantrum, mid-whatever chaos is happening, their nervous system is in a full activation state. Telling them to just stop is the neurological equivalent of telling someone having a panic attack to calm down. The command doesn't reach the rational brain because the rational brain is not available. What the child actually needs is co-regulation, a calm nervous system beside them, not a verbal command firing at them. The phrase "just stop" accelerates the threat response. It does not end it. Phrase number 2, because I said so. This one feels like authority. What it actually does is remove the scaffolding that toddlers need to build causal reasoning. The developing brain is wired to ask why, not to be annoying, because understanding why is how it builds the neural pathways for logic and consequence. When you shut down the why with "because I said so," you don't just end the question, you interrupt the building process. And you also, over time, train the child that questions are not safe, which becomes a very different problem when they are teenagers. Phrase number 3, you're being too sensitive. Emotional sensitivity in a toddler is not a flaw, it is a feature. The nervous system at this age is calibrated for high sensitivity because that is what kept our ancestors alive. When you label sensitivity as a problem, 2 things happen neurologically. First, the child learns to distrust their internal signals, the very signals that emotional intelligence is built on. Second, the stress of being shamed for feeling something activates the same threat circuitry as physical danger. The child does not learn to feel less, they learn to hide what they feel. That is not regulation, that is suppression. And suppressed emotion in a developing nervous system does not disappear, it accumulates. Phrase number 4, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. This one carries threat and shame simultaneously, which is a particularly potent neurological combination. Threat activates the survival response. Shame activates the social rejection response. Together, they tell the child's brain, your emotions will get you abandoned and hurt. The crying does not stop. It either escalates or goes underground. Either way, the child has just learned that their authentic emotional expression is dangerous. Phrase number 5, big kids don't do that. This creates what developmental psychologists call conditional worth. The idea that love, acceptance, and approval are contingent on behavior. The toddler's brain is not capable yet of separating "I did something wrong" from "I am something wrong." So when you tie their identity to their behavior in this way, you are not motivating them toward maturity. You are telling their nervous system that their value is negotiable. Phrase number 6, why can't you just listen for once? Let's be honest. This one is about our frustration, not their comprehension. And toddlers read emotional tone before they process words. What lands is not the question. What lands is the despair and irritation in the delivery. And the toddler brain, which is already desperately dependent on the caregiver for felt safety, reads parental frustration as relational threat. Their behavior typically escalates after this phrase, not because they are defying you, but because their attachment system just activated an alarm. Phrase number 7. You're so stubborn. Labeling. This one is subtle and destructive in a slow way. The toddler brain is in the middle of identity formation. It is literally building the neural architecture for self-concept right now. When we label behavior as personality, you are stubborn, you are difficult, you are so dramatic, the brain begins organizing around that label. Children live into the stories we tell about them. The label becomes the map, and the map shapes the territory. Phrase number 8. Be nice or no one will want to play with you. Social threat is processed by the same regions of the brain as physical pain. In the toddler brain, which is wired for tribal belonging and caregiver proximity, the idea of social rejection is genuinely terrifying. This phrase does not teach social skills. It activates fear around connection. And children who are taught to earn belonging through performance develop anxiety around relationships, not ease within them. Phrase number 9. You're fine. It's not a big deal. Minimizing. The experience inside your toddler's body in that moment is enormous. The nervous system is flooded. The amygdala is firing. To them, it is a very big deal. Neurologically, it is a full system event. When you invalidate that experience, you are not soothing them. You are teaching them that their internal reality cannot be trusted. Over years, this becomes adults who gaslight themselves out of their own pain. Phrase number 10. I'm going to leave without you. Attachment threat. This is the most activating phrase on the list because it strikes directly at the child's survival system. Toddlers are biologically wired to experience caregiver loss as life-threatening. It is not metaphorical to them. When you say this, even as a bluff, you are detonating the attachment alarm system. The immediate compliance you might get is not cooperation. It is a trauma response. And the repeated activation of that response has measurable effects on the developing stress regulation system. Now, if everything I just explained resonated with you, I need to tell you something important. Because understanding your toddler's brain is only half the equation, the other half is what happens inside your nervous system when the meltdown starts. Most parents I talk to say the same thing. I know what to do. I just can't do it when it's actually happening. That's not a willpower problem. That's a sequencing problem. And nobody has ever given you the right tool in the right order for the right moment. I wrote the reset cycle specifically for that gap. It's not another gentle parenting theory. It's a 3-step biological system: regulate, break, repair, built for the real conditions of your life. The 7 a.m. meltdown, the supermarket floor, the moment after you already yelled. It works before the crisis, after the explosion, and in the hours that follow. The link is in the description. And if there's one thing you take away from this video today, take that. Here is what I want you to hold on to as you move through your day. You were handed a set of words, a script, by the adults who raised you. They were handed that same script by the adults who raised them. Nobody gave them the neuroscience either. Nobody sat them down and said, here is what is happening inside a developing brain when you say these things. You are in a different position now. You have the information. And information is not the same as perfection. I want to be very clear about that. You will still say the wrong thing sometimes. You will still lose your patience. You will still have a day where the words come out before the prefrontal cortex catches up, even your own. What matters is the repair. What matters is that you come back. What matters is that you keep choosing to understand what is underneath the behavior instead of just reacting to the surface of it. That is not a small thing. That is actually the whole thing. If this channel is giving you a different lens for your toddler's behavior, subscribe, because we are building a whole library of these translations, and you do not have to navigate this phase in the dark. There is a video coming next that goes even deeper into the window of tolerance and what it means for your daily rhythms with your child. You are going to want to watch it. You are already doing better than you think you are.